My name is Chloe, and for the longest time, I believed I knew what a successful life looked like. At 28, I had curated a life that ticked all the conventional boxes. I had a promising career in a bustling corporate office, a position I had clawed my way into through sleepless nights and relentless ambition. My monthly paycheck of $5,000 was a testament to that grind, a figure that felt like a validation of my worth. For 5 of those years, I had been married to Leo. Leo, at 30, was my anchor, though I didn't always see it that way. He was the epitome of gentle strength. His voice never rose above a conversational tone, his patience a deep, unshakable well. In the turbulent sea of my ambition, he was the calm. He never belittled me, never dismissed my frustrations, never met my fire with anything but quiet understanding. When a fever would chain me to the bed, he was the one who would sit by my side, changing the cool cloth on my forehead. When exhaustion from work left me hollow, he'd appear with a warm plate of food, no questions asked. He was the silent architect of my comfort, from the cup of tea that greeted me each morning to the dinners he'd have waiting when my late nights at the office stretched into evenings. He was the steady hand that held mine when my carefully constructed world felt like it was crumbling. He would listen to my tears, absorbing my anxieties without judgment. "You are the strongest person I know, Chloe," he'd whisper, his belief in me more potent than any professional accolade. "I am so proud of you." Leo was, by every conceivable measure, a good man. But goodness, I was learning, doesn't always glitter. And I had become obsessed with glitter. While I climbed the corporate ladder, Leo remained a delivery driver. He worked with a quiet dignity that I had once admired, but had slowly started to resent. His days were long, spent under the scorching sun, through sudden downpours, and in the biting cold of winter. He would come home late, the fatigue etched onto his face, his feet sore, a fine layer of city dust clinging to his work shirt. He never once complained. His mantra was always a soft, "It's okay, Chloe, I like the work." His monthly income was $2,200. It was a humble figure, but it was honestly earned. Slowly, insidiously, a poison began to seep into my heart. It started with a glance, a casual scroll through social media, a conversation overheard at a cafe. I saw women my age adorned with sparkling diamond rings, their arms draped with designer handbags that cost more than our monthly rent. I saw their husbands, men in sharp suits, presenting them with the keys to new cars, new houses, lavish gifts that screamed success. Then my eyes would land on Leo. He was still wearing the same pair of sturdy work shoes he'd bought 2 years ago. His wardrobe was functional, not fashionable. The gifts he gave me were thoughtful and sentimental, a framed photo, a first edition copy of my favorite book, but never expensive. The poison of comparison began its work, turning my admiration into annoyance, my contentment into a gnawing dissatisfaction. The man I had fallen in love with for his gentle spirit was now being judged on a scale he wasn't even aware of. The anger simmered, and one evening it boiled over. "Leo, why don't you aim for something more?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. "Why not try to start a business, something with a future?" He was sitting at the kitchen table, mending a tear in his work jacket. He looked down at his hands, at the needle and thread moving with practiced care. "I wouldn't know where to begin," he said, his voice barely a murmur. "I've never done anything like that." My irritation spiked. "Other men do it, men with far less intelligence than you. Why can't you just try?" Leo fell silent. It was his signature response, a retreat into a quiet place I couldn't breach. He lifted his head and looked at me, and in his eyes I saw a profound sadness, a flicker of hurt that I chose to ignore. I was relentless. I didn't stop that night, or the nights that followed. The comparisons became my weapon. "You're not like other husbands," I'd say, twisting the knife of my own insecurity. What I conveniently ignored was the depth of his character, the quiet sacrifices he made every single day. Out of his $2,200 salary, the first $1,000 went directly to his aging parents. They were frail and battling chronic illnesses, and Leo's contribution was their lifeline, covering their rent and expensive medications. He ensured they were cared for before he even considered a single expense for himself. He would hand me the remaining $1,200, his entire disposable income for our household. Yet I would look at that sum with disdain. "It's not enough," was my constant refrain. I never once said thank you. I never acknowledged the weight of his filial duty or the selflessness of his gesture. One evening, he returned home much later than usual, looking utterly drained. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper. "Where have you been?" I demanded, my voice laced with accusation rather than concern. "I was looking for a second job," he said, avoiding my gaze. A flicker of something, surprise, maybe even hope, stirred in me. "Did you find one?" "Not yet," he said, a weary resolve in his tone. "But I'll keep trying." For the next week, he became a ghost in our home. He was gone before the sun rose and returned long after it had set. He grew quieter, the easy smile that used to grace his lips now a rare visitor. He looked haunted, consumed by a mission I had forced on him. Then, after a week of this relentless search, he had news. "I found something," he announced, his voice flat with exhaustion. "I'll be working the night shift at a restaurant. It's another $2,000 a month." "Good job," I said, the words feeling hollow even to my own ears. I didn't ask about the hours, I didn't ask how he would manage, I didn't ask if he was okay. I just saw the number, the extra income that would push us closer to the life I craved. Leo's life became a blur of perpetual motion. He was a machine fueled by a desire to please me. He woke in the pre-dawn darkness for his delivery routes and went straight from there to the sweltering heat of a restaurant kitchen. He came home in the dead of night, long after I had gone to sleep, and was gone again before I awoke. Our conversations dwindled to short notes left on the counter. The laughter that once filled our small apartment died out, replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. He was a phantom, his presence felt only in the extra money in our bank accounts. One night, the silence was shattered. I heard the front door open and close, followed by his heavy footsteps heading straight for the bathroom. Then, a sudden, sickening thud, a sound of dead weight hitting the tile floor. My heart leaped into my throat. I bolted out of bed and ran to the bathroom. The sight that greeted me will be forever seared into my memory. Leo was crumpled on the floor, his body slumped against the wall. His face was a ghastly shade of pale, his skin clammy with a cold sweat. His hands were trembling uncontrollably. "Leo!" I screamed, his name tearing from my lungs in a raw burst of panic. "Leo, what's wrong?" He looked up at me, his eyes struggling to focus. A faint, weak smile touched his lips. "I'm just tired," he breathed. "A little dizzy." A wave of cold dread washed over me. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I called for a cab. The ride to the hospital was a blur of flashing city lights and my own frantic, whispered pleas for him to be okay. The doctor's words were a clinical, brutal indictment of my selfishness. "He's suffering from severe exhaustion and dehydration," the doctor explained, his face stern. "His body has been pushed far beyond its limits. He needs complete rest, no work, no stress. He's lucky he only collapsed." I sat by his hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, a rhythm I had taken for granted. In the sterile quiet of the room, with the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor as the only sound, the walls of my delusion finally came crashing down. I looked at his face, peaceful in sleep, and I saw the toll my ambition had taken. I saw the man who had worked himself to the brink of collapse, not for himself, but for me. Tears streamed down my face, hot and silent. I reached for his hand, his familiar, calloused hand, and held it to my cheek. "I'm so sorry, Leo," I sobbed, the words a choked whisper. I'm so sorry. I was blind. I didn't see you. I didn't see how hard you were trying for me. His eyes fluttered open. He turned his head slowly on the pillow and looked at me, his gaze soft and free of any resentment. He squeezed my hand weakly. "Don't cry, Chloe," he said, his voice raspy. "I just wanted to make you proud." Those words didn't just break my heart. They shattered it into a million pieces. In that moment of devastating clarity, I understood everything. I had been chasing a cheap imitation of happiness. I wanted Leo to be a man in a tailored suit, driving a luxury car, buying me diamonds. I had been so obsessed with what he wasn't that I had failed to appreciate everything he was. He didn't need to be rich to be worthy. His value wasn't measured by his paycheck. He was already giving me the things that truly mattered, the things no amount of money could ever buy. He gave me his unwavering love. He gave me a sense of peace in a chaotic world. He gave me his respect, his support, and his loyalty. He gave me all of himself, without reservation. And that was more than enough. It was everything. That night in the hospital was a painful but necessary rebirth. From that day forward, I stopped the toxic game of comparison. I stopped complaining about what we didn't have and started cherishing what we did. I stopped chasing the hollow validation of material things. Now, when I look at Leo, I see him with new eyes. I don't see a delivery driver. I see a man of incredible integrity and strength. I see a man who works hard, not for status, but for his family. I see a man who understands the profound meaning of sacrifice. I see a man who loves me with a quiet, deep, and unconditional love. Leo isn't just my husband. He is my quiet storm, the calm center that keeps my world from spinning out of control. He is the silent, steady love that stays, even when it is not appreciated. And I have learned that this kind of love, the kind that doesn't shout for attention, but simply endures, is the most precious treasure of all.